It's extremely disturbing. These riots have themselves provoked counter riots where identifiably Muslim young men, some armed, have been also shown on camera attacking people in the streets. And this is really just a completely appalling, and I'm sorry to say this, completely predictable situation.
No one questioned why BLM were out. No one questions why Palestine are out. We're saving the kids. We're stopping the boats. We're closing the borders. Look how mad we've all gone. This is real women. This is lionesses. This is the lion roaring. I'm not racist and I don't give a what you say.
They'll lock some people up and they will demonize all sorts of people and they'll cover for others, but they will do nothing to address this. The British public have been begging for years for consecutive governments to bring down immigration and to increase opportunities in the UK.
Douglas Murray's speech about the recent protests and riots in the UK speaks to the frustration many people feel. For years, the British public has been asking the government to reduce immigration and create more jobs and opportunities.
Not only were they not listened to, they were reviled, insulted, and much more. And, you know, it also needs to be said, each of the towns in which these awful riots have been occurring are all places that are resonant with huge crimes that were covered up by almost everybody in authority.
But instead of being listened to, they were often ignored, insulted, or dismissed. Murray points out that the towns where these riots are happening have a history of serious crimes, like the grooming gangs in Rotherham and Rochdale. These crimes were not only terrible but were also reportedly covered up by the authorities, making people lose trust in those in power. While Murray makes it clear that violence and rioting are never acceptable, he questions why the government, especially a Labour government, has not tried to understand what is going wrong in these areas. There is a strong feeling that the government is not listening to the people and is not addressing the real problems causing the unrest. He also mentions the recent tragedy in Southport, where a children's dance class was attacked. This, Murray suggests, could spark even more anger and trouble across the country. The government's failure to respond effectively only adds to the sense that things are not right in the UK. Murray's message is that the government needs to start listening to the public and take action to fix these issues. If they don't, the country may face even more division and disorder. The British people deserve better, and it's the government's job to make sure they get it.
They're calling us far right. We're not far right, we're all fathers and parents of children. These immigrants are coming in without paperwork, we're lying about their ages, we don't know nothing about the backgrounds, and that's what
I'm thinking of the, well, again, what are called the grooming gangs, but are the rape gangs, which struck in Rotherham, in Rochdale, in town after town, whose names are back in the news now. And obviously there's no excuse for the rioting. Why does nobody in government, and a Labour government at that, not listen to these people, at least find out what has gone so badly wrong in these areas? That reports of who carried out this atrocity in Southport at the dance class for children, that could ignite a country. It doesn't suggest to me that the country is in a healthy state.
I'm here to save the kids. The children have been murdered. There's been a massacre on the street.
The unrest in the UK began after a tragic incident in Southport, where a 17-year-old young man stabbed 3 girls to death at a Taylor Swift-themed dance party. In the immediate aftermath, there was a strong sense among the public that the authorities were deliberately withholding the identity of the suspect. While there might have been reasons for doing so, such as ongoing investigations or legal concerns, this decision significantly heightened tensions in the community. The attempt to control information instead of calming the situation had the opposite effect. People were already on edge, and the lack of transparency only fueled suspicion and anger. As Murray pointed out, the authorities' handling of the situation completely backfired, leading to widespread riots in city after city across the UK. These riots reflect deep frustrations and distrust in the authorities, who are seen as not only failing to protect the public, but also failing to be honest with them. The tragic event in Southport was the spark, but the underlying issues of mistrust and anger had been building for a long time. The violence that followed is a symptom of these deeper problems, showing just how fragile the situation has become. This series of events highlights the importance of clear and transparent communication from those in power, especially during times of crisis. The public's trust in the authorities is crucial, and once that trust is broken, it can lead to serious consequences, as seen in the current unrest. The situation calls for a careful and honest response to address the root causes of the anger and to prevent further escalation.
Well, yes, this all started after a young man, a 17-year-old, stabbed to death 3 girls at a Taylor Swift-themed dance party in the town of Southport. And the sense clearly in the immediate aftermath of that, this is an observation, was that the authorities were withholding the identity of the suspect. Now, there are some reasons why they might do that. But obviously, tensions locally were extremely high. Feelings were extremely high. That's led to these riots across city after city in the UK. But, you know, the last few days have shown the Labour government refusing to concede that there is anything other than what they call far-right violence going on. They claim that there isn't a two-tier policing system in the UK, which everybody with their own eyes can see is not the case.
You don't want to be branded far right. You know, we're here for the right reasons. I want my kids to know I didn't stay silent. Leave our kids alone.
Clearly, there is a two-tier.
Douglas Murray highlights a critical issue that many in the UK have observed: a perceived two-tier policing system. Despite official claims to the contrary, many people believe there is a clear difference in how law enforcement handles situations depending on who is involved.
Clearly, there is a two-tier policing system in the UK. These areas where this has happened in, what's more, are all areas where there were riots in 2011. And as I write in The Spectator this week, one of the interesting things about that is that all of these areas are, among other things, areas where migration has continued to increase and joblessness has gone up.
This perception adds to the frustration and distrust that have fueled the recent unrest. Murray draws attention to the fact that the areas currently experiencing riots are the same places that saw similar unrest in 2011. These are also areas where immigration has continued to rise, while job opportunities have dwindled. This combination of increased immigration and rising joblessness creates a volatile situation.
Now, just think of those two factors, anyone watching. You keep forcing immigration onto these areas, and you do nothing to improve the lot in these areas. Of course, nobody should be on the streets. The unbelievable hooliganism and thuggery of recent days should repel everybody. But, you know, very often when there is some kind of violence or unrest, we hear political leaders and the wise heads in the commentariat saying we need to address underlying causes. Why has nobody said that in recent days?
When people in these communities see that their concerns are being ignored or that the problems in their areas are getting worse, it's not surprising that tensions eventually boil over. Murray condemns the hooliganism and thuggery that have characterized the recent riots, noting that such behavior should be rejected by everyone. However, he also points out a glaring inconsistency in the response from political leaders and commentators. Typically, when there is violence or unrest, there is a call to address the underlying causes of the problem. Yet, in the case of these riots, there has been little to no discussion about what might be driving the unrest. This silence is concerning. The fact that no one is asking why these riots are happening suggests a reluctance to confront the difficult issues at play, issues like immigration, unemployment, and the sense of abandonment felt in many communities. Murray's message is clear. If these underlying causes are not addressed, the unrest will not only continue, but could potentially worsen. The current situation is a stark reminder that ignoring or downplaying these issues will only lead to more division and violence. It's time for political leaders to face these problems head-on, to listen to the concerns of the people in these affected areas, and to take meaningful action to improve their lives. Without this, the cycle of unrest is likely to continue, with potentially even more severe consequences in the future.
I mean, I've just seen a report from another so-called mainstream channel in the UK, where the quite clearly the journalists are trying not to reveal part of the story. What they're trying not to reveal is what they call Asian men in the area intimidating and harassing journalists. Well, these aren't, once again, you get back to the endless euphemism and lying that is just prevalent across our media. These are not, Hong Kong residents who have decided to go out and threaten people. They are, regrettably, organized Muslim groups. And, they're being whipped up by people, presumably in their community, but also by left-wing and other activists, obviously by the people on the street as well.
Douglas Murray highlights another troubling aspect of the current situation: the media's reluctance to fully report on certain details of the unrest. He criticises what he sees as the media's use of euphemisms and selective reporting, particularly in describing the involvement of Asian men in intimidating and harassing journalists. Murray argues that these vague descriptions obscure the reality that these are organised groups, specifically within the Muslim community, who are being incited to act aggressively. Murray points out that this reluctance to speak plainly about what is happening is part of a broader trend of dishonesty and euphemism in the media. By not fully addressing the identity and motives of those involved, the media contributes to a culture of denial that prevents the public from understanding the full scope of the problem. This, in turn, can lead to even greater mistrust and division. He also suggests that these groups are not acting independently, but are being stirred up by individuals within their community as well as by left-wing and other activists. This organised effort to mobilise people on the streets is a dangerous development, adding another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation.
It's about children that have lost their lives in this city, and we're passionate about that up here.
We're not racist. We've got Muslim friends. Our country has benefited from migration. However, it's just getting overwhelming. We're a very small island. It's become a security risk.
Now, the idea that the answer to that is to crack down on Twitter, X, is an absolute case study of the failure of the political class in the UK. I remember in 2017, when 3 Muslim men went across London Bridge, slitting people's throats and shouting, "This is for Allah." And the Mayor of London and the then Prime Minister, Theresa May, came out and said that we need to address online radicalization. And then Theresa May set up somebody to look into the definition of extremism. What have they actually done in all of these years? Absolutely nothing. And it'll be the same with this.